Here's a puzzle that trips up almost everyone learning Kubernetes. Start simple. One node, one machine, running a couple of pods, each with its own IP address. Now add a second node, a completely separate machine with its own pods and its own IP range. 2 hosts, 2 separate networks. And here's the puzzle. Pod A over on node 1 wants to talk to pod B on node 2. Different machines, different networks, yet it just works with no manual wiring at all. And the really strange part, pods are constantly dying and being recreated, their IP addresses changing every time, yet everything still connects. How? That's what we're going to trace by following a single packet through what's basically a city. Before any of the tech, Kubernetes lays down 3 hard rules that the network must obey. Rule 1. Every pod can talk to every other pod directly, with no NAT, no address translation in the middle. Rule 2. Every node can reach every pod. It's one big, flat, routable space, no hidden private islands. And Rule 3. The IP a pod sees as its own is the exact same IP everyone else uses to reach it. No translation, no disguise. Put together, these 3 rules mean one thing: a single, flat network where every pod is directly addressable, like every apartment in a city having its own real street address. But here's the twist that surprises people. Kubernetes itself doesn't actually build this network. It only writes the rules. Something else does the real wiring. Hold that thought, we'll get to who. First, the city. Let's make this concrete with a city. Each node is a building. And inside each building, every pod is an apartment, its own front door, its own address. Apartments are pods, buildings are nodes, and a packet is a letter trying to get from one apartment to another, sometimes in the same building, sometimes across town. Every apartment has its own street address. First, how does an apartment even connect to the outside? Through a veth pair, a virtual Ethernet pipe. It has 2 ends. One plugged into the pod's own network namespace, its private network stack, and the other plugged into the node's root namespace, the building lobby. It's literally a pipe with 2 ends, and packets flow both directions through it. Every pod gets one of these the moment it's born. That's the on-ramp for everything that follows. So the apartment's connected to the lobby. But now a packet leaves the apartment, then what? If it's headed to a neighbor in the same building, that's easy. A different building across town, that's a whole different problem. Let's do the easy one first. 2 pods in the same building. Pod A and Pod C, same node. Their veth pipes both connect to a Linux bridge or a local interface acting as the building's lobby. Pod A hands its packet to the lobby passes it to Pod C. And that's the whole trip. The packet never leaves the host machine. It's all handled locally in software inside the one node. Fast and simple. Now the harder case. Pod A is on node 1, but Pod B lives on node 2, a different building across town. The lobby trick won't work because Pod B simply isn't in this building. A mail truck has to carry it across, so the packet has to actually leave the building and travel the roads to the other node. And that raises a real question. How does it know the way, and how does it get there intact? There are 2 strategies. The first is an overlay network, think VXLAN or Genev. It takes your packet and wraps it inside another packet, a sealed courier pouch, ships that over whatever roads already exist, and unwraps it on arrival. It works on almost any network. The second strategy is direct routing. Using BGP, think of it as a shared street map. Instead of wrapping anything, every building shares a map of exactly which pod addresses live where. The packet just drives straight to the right node. No pouch, no overhead. Same goal, get the packet to the right building, but 2 very different costs. Overlays are flexible, but add encapsulation overhead. Direct routing is lean, but needs a network that supports it. So packets can travel anywhere in the city. But wait, who assigns all these apartment addresses in the first place? And who draws the map that tells packets where to go? Not Kubernetes. A plugin does. That plugin follows a standard called the CNI, the Container Network Interface, the city's postal authority. Kubernetes only publishes the spec. Here's what a network plugin must do. The CNI plugin actually does it. The instant a new pod is created, the postal authority springs into action. It assigns the pod its IP address. A new apartment, a new street number, handed out immediately. And it programs the routing tables so packets can find that new pod. The map updated the moment the apartment exists. So remember the split. Kubernetes ships the spec, and the plugin does the wiring. That's why you get to choose your plugin, and the choice really matters. Three popular CNIs, three trade-offs. Flannel is the simplest, a basic VXLAN overlay. Easiest to run, perfect for learning or light workloads, but it carries encapsulation overhead and doesn't do network policies. Calico steps up the performance. It uses BGP for direct routing, no encapsulation overhead, and strong network policy support. The catch: it wants a network that plays nicely with BGP. And Cilium is the modern favorite. It uses eBPF, running deep in the Linux kernel, for huge performance and observability gains. And as we'll see, it can even replace other core pieces. So the spectrum runs simple to performant to kernel native. Flannel to learn, Calico to scale, Cilium to go all in. So pods can find each other by IP, and the postal authority hands those IPs out. But there's a problem baked into Kubernetes. Pods die constantly. They get rescheduled, replaced, restarted, and every time their IP address changes. So how do you keep talking to something that never stops moving? The answer is a service. Specifically, a ClusterIP gives you one stable, virtual IP address, a permanent front desk number for the building. You always call that number, and you never care which specific apartment answers. Behind that fixed number, the actual pods churn endlessly. One dies, a new one spins up with a fresh IP, and another. The service IP never changes. The callers never notice. Stable discovery on top of unstable pods. But there's one more piece, and it's the piece beginners hit first. Your app almost never knows the service IP, it calls the service by name, like payments, SVC. So who turns that name into the number? CoreDNS, the city phone book, running inside the cluster. A pod asks, where is payments, SVC, and CoreDNS answers with the service cluster IP, 10.96.0.10. Only then does the traffic head off to that front desk number. And with the number in hand, the request finally reaches the service. So the real flow is, you call the name, DNS returns the number, and the service takes it from there. That name-to-IP lookup is service discovery, happening on almost every request your apps make. So who keeps that front desk number pointing at live pods? The hero behind the scenes, kube-proxy, the front desk clerk. It runs on every node and watches the API server for any change to services or their pods. Whenever something changes, the clerk rewrites the forwarding rules on that node. Using iptables, the rulebook, or IPVS for larger clusters, on every single node in the cluster. Those rules do the magic. Any traffic aimed at a service's virtual IP gets intercepted and quietly redirected to one of the healthy backend pods. The caller thinks it hit a fixed address. The clerk load balances it to something real. But how the clerk does this matters at scale. The classic mode is iptables, the slow receptionist, reading a list of rules top to bottom. Fine for a small cluster, but as your services grow, that sequential lookup gets slower and slower. A real bottleneck. IPVS is the first fix, the index guard receptionist. Instead of a sequential list, it uses hash-based lookups, so it scales cleanly to thousands of services without that slowdown. And the modern answer is eBPF, the in-kernel express lane, Cilium's trick. It can replace kube-proxy entirely, handling service routing directly in the kernel with no rule chain to walk at all. So the progression is iptables to IPVS to eBPF. Cilium and eBPF skip the lookup chain completely, right down in the kernel, a big part of why it's become the performance favorite. Everything so far is internal, pod to service, all inside the cluster. That's east-west traffic, but your users aren't inside the cluster. So how does someone out on the internet actually reach your app? That's north-south traffic. There are a few layers of getting in. The most basic is a NodePort, a side door on every building. It opens the same port on every node, so external traffic can hit any node on that port and get forwarded in. Simple but crude. Next, a load balancer service, the valet out front. In the cloud, this provisions a real external load balancer that spreads incoming traffic across your nodes. Cleaner, but it's one load balancer per service, which gets expensive. Then the Ingress, the smart concierge, a layer 7 reverse proxy like Engine, X, or Envoy. This is where you get smart routing, TLS termination and path-based rules, sending /API to one service and /web to another, all behind a single entry point. And the modern successor to Ingress is the Gateway API, the same concierge, reorganized by role across teams. If you saw our Gateway API video, this is exactly where it plugs in. So the ladder of getting in goes. Raw side door to valet to smart concierge to the role-oriented Gateway API. Each rung more capable than the last. One last thing, and it's the one people forget. By default, a Kubernetes network is an open house. Any pod can talk to any other pod, with nothing stopping it. Great for getting started, dangerous in production. The fix is network policies, security guards for your pods, working at layer 3 and 4. You write, in plain YAML, exactly who is allowed to talk to whom. For example, the front end is allowed to reach the back end. That path is waved through, green light. But the front end is not allowed to talk directly to the database. The guard blocks it. Front to back is fine. Front straight to the data store is denied. That's the whole idea. Turn the open house into locked rooms with keycards. Network policy is the firewall, deny by default, and allow only the connections you actually intend. So let's replay the entire journey of one packet, one stage at a time. It starts inside a pod, an apartment ready to send. It flows out through the veth pipe into the building lobby, across the bridge, if its destination is in the same building, onto a CNI-programmed route, if it has to cross to another building. It finds a stable target through a service's front desk number. It can come in from the outside through an ingress, and it's gated at every step by a network policy. Now the color map. Teal is the pod plumbing, pod veth bridge. Amber is the CNI routing across nodes. Coral is the service layer and getting in from outside. And green is the policy layer, the guards. 6 phases, one continuous path, the whole of Kubernetes networking on a single map. Pause and screenshot this one. Pod is an apartment, node is a building, the CNI is the postal authority, the service is the front desk, and policy is the security guard. Hold that picture, and here's where you go next. You can now route a packet anywhere in the cluster, but what happens when it silently disappears between 2 pods? No error, no log, nothing. How do you even see where it died? That's the whole next video. Kubernetes observability and eBPF tracing. Go watch it, and drop your guess for the #1 cause in the comments. If following one packet through the city finally made Kubernetes networking click. The apartments, the postal authority, the front desk. The guards, hit like and subscribe for more Kubernetes and system design deep dives. I'll see you in the next building.